Revenge on my wife for me. Those were the words I read in a letter from my late son, Liam, who had passed away suddenly, leaving behind what once was a happy marriage. Revenge on my wife for me. The words were followed by an address I didn't recognize. Is this where Liam wants me to go? I wondered, my tears now replaced by cold sweats. I never imagined Liam using a word like revenge. He must have been pushed to his limits. What could I possibly find out there? Since the funeral, I had been cooped up at home, but I immediately rushed out, forgetting even to do my makeup. But right now, that didn't matter. I wanted to honor my beloved son's last wish. Driven by a single purpose, I hurried to the address written in Liam's letter. The place he directed me to was a rental storage facility a bit away from my home. Among the rows of storage units, I found the one numbered in the letter. Inserting a small key that was attached to the letter into the lock, I opened the door. The small room, about the size of a half-bedroom, was dimly lit and slightly musty despite it being daytime. When I pressed the switch for the fluorescent light next to the door, the exposed bulb buzzed to life, illuminating the room. "What is this?" I exclaimed, feeling an instinctive fear that made my whole body tremble. "My name is Amelia Williams. I'm a 54-year-old part-time employee. It's been 20 years since I lost my beloved husband. He had mentioned feeling a bit unwell, and not long after, he passed away. His death was so sudden and unbelievable that I still find it hard to accept. He wasn't suffering from any serious illness and had always been diligent about his annual health checkups. Yet despite this, he left me and our son Liam behind. After my husband's death, Liam and I lived together. At that time, Liam was just in elementary school and seemed unable to accept his father's sudden passing more than I could. My in-laws also started visiting frequently to take care of Liam. It seemed as if Liam was desperately trying to hide the loneliness of not having his father around. Responding to our grief, he even encouraged me when I would frequently panic. "Mom, it's okay because I'm here." His young voice still echoes in my ears. After losing my husband, I started working part-time to raise Liam, trying to forget the sadness amidst the daily busyness. Liam never complained, even though I was often busy and away from home. He must have felt lonely too, but he never said a word and continued to encourage me. In response to Liam's support, I gradually overcame my sadness. As time passed, in middle and high school, Liam started working part-time, helping with the household finances. He did this to avoid putting too much strain on me, balancing work and his studies. He was a good student, and at parent-teacher meetings, teachers would praise him so much that it almost embarrassed me. Despite losing his father, I am grateful every day for how wonderfully he has grown up. After graduating high school, Liam started working right away. He had the grades to aim for any university, but I think he considered my situation. "I'm tired of studying," he said, and began working at a small local factory. Liam, always smart, learned his job quickly and was well liked at the factory. Despite the challenges of physical labor, his days seemed fulfilling. A few years passed, and Liam found a girlfriend. He used to stay in on his days off, but then he started going out almost every weekend. As a mother, I felt a bit lonely, but I was also relieved that my son, at that age, had a girlfriend. Above all, Liam seemed happy, which made me happy. He had always been considerate of me, continually supporting me. Now I wanted him to think about his own happiness. I watched over his relationship from a distance. When Liam turned 27, he decided to get married. His fiancée was a woman 2 years his senior named Chloe. When they got engaged, Chloe came with Liam to meet me. Compared to the rather reserved Liam, Chloe was a striking beauty with distinct facial features. I was surprised not only that Liam brought home such a woman, but also that they met at a drinking party. I was taken aback by this unknown side of my son, whom I had doted on, but I had no bad impression of Chloe. She worked in sales at a cosmetics company, I learned. Perhaps because of her job, she was good at conversation, and our first meeting ended in a pleasant atmosphere. Soon after, they had their wedding, and Liam moved out to live apart from me. "Mom, are you sure you'll be okay alone?" "It's still in the county, but a bit far," Liam worried until the very last minute before moving. Chloe also seemed concerned about me living alone, and there was even serious talk of us living together for a while. Though it was a kind offer, I couldn't impose any further on Liam. I graciously declined their kind intentions and celebrated their new life together. Even after that, Liam frequently visited me, but I noticed he was getting thinner. He had chosen to change jobs to be closer to Chloe's company. but it seemed to be quite tough for him. Unlike the small factory he was used to, Liam had chosen a sales job, and apparently, the stress had caused him to lose his appetite. "You've lost weight again, haven't you? It's good to work hard, but it's serious if you ruin your health, you know." I'd express my concern every time Liam visited home, but he would just say, "I'm fine, really," showing no intention of changing jobs initially. I assumed his stress was due to the unfamiliar job, but it took me a while to realize that this wasn't the only thing troubling him. I've told him, but he won't listen. Maybe Chloe could talk to him. He can be so stubborn, I thought. 3 years into Liam and Chloe's marriage, as Liam turned 30, his complexion worsened, and he seemed on the verge of physical exhaustion. I often asked him, why not change jobs instead of overworking yourself? But he stubbornly refused. Perhaps it was his sense of responsibility from being married to Chloe that made Liam feel he couldn't just quit his job now. Seeing this, I contacted Chloe, asking her to encourage Liam to consider a job change. Chloe seemed worried about Liam getting thinner day by day and tearfully apologized to me, saying it was her fault. "Chloe, you're not to blame. Liam has always been a hard worker and tends to push himself too hard. But he might listen more readily to you than to me," I said. Honestly, I had been feeling somewhat irritated with Chloe for not doing anything about Liam's deteriorating health since their marriage. Despite my repeated requests for her to take care of him, she did nothing but apologize. Yet I couldn't blame her outright, so all I could do was watch as Liam's health declined. Days passed since I contacted Chloe, but there was no sign of any response from her. She must know how worried I am. Wouldn't it be normal to at least get in touch? Concerned about Liam, I found myself getting irritated over small things. I decided to calm myself and took the initiative to contact her again. "Hi, Chloe. Have you talked to Liam since our last conversation?" I carefully chose my words as I asked Chloe about Liam's situation. After a moment's pause, an unbelievable response came. Not words, but the distinct sound of a tongue clicking on the other end of the phone. Chloe had definitely clicked her tongue. "Mother-in-law, I'm busy with my work too. I'm keeping a close eye on Liam's health. Aren't you being a bit overprotective? If he says he's fine, then he must be fine," Chloe said, her irritation evident as she rushed through her words. It wasn't the tone of voice I knew from Chloe, but it was unmistakably hers. Had she been pretending all this time? I was left speechless, and Chloe seemed to regain some composure, continuing, "I'm sorry. I'm just worried and getting irritated too." Chloe tried to cover up her frustration, but my wariness toward her didn't fade. For the first time, I saw Chloe as a potential threat. If things continued this way, Liam might be in danger. A bad feeling crossed my mind, but as long as Liam himself didn't speak up, I couldn't interfere in matters involving Chloe. Liam was due to visit in a few days, and I thought I should speak to him more firmly then. Could he be troubled by something other than work? Perhaps there were serious issues in his marital life. Maybe, as Chloe suggested, I was being a bit overprotective, but it should be okay to talk when he visited. I managed to hide my restless feelings and waited for the day Liam would come, but my judgment proved to be wrong, a decision I would regret for the rest of my life. It happened suddenly. "Is this Mrs. Williams, mother of Liam Williams?" The call from the police gripped my heart with pain. A dreadful premonition shot through me, and I felt as if I were about to faint. It couldn't be. Even before the officer could state their business, my mind raced with the worst possible scenarios, desperately trying to deny them while also feeling a sense of resignation. I didn't want to hear any more. Fighting the urge to hang up, I nodded. As expected, it was the news of Liam's death. Liam had taken his own life, I heard repeatedly, but I dropped the phone, forgetting even to cry. I stood there dazed, repeatedly asking, "Why, Liam?" like a broken record. How much time had passed? The pounding on the front door snapped me back to reality. Several police officers had come to check on me, worried about the broken call. I crawled to the front door and opened it, seeing the officers standing there with pained expressions. I finally broke down, crying uncontrollably. A female officer who had come with the others embraced me, and we cried together. The reality of Liam's death hit me like a tidal wave. My beloved son was gone. Overwhelmed by grief, I barely remember the details of the funeral. My anger toward Chloe faded into the background as I focused solely on what needed to be done. There was so much I wanted to say, so much to discuss, but at that moment, words failed me. The police, seeing my condition, decided to postpone their questioning and planned to talk to Chloe in the meantime. However, I doubted she would reveal anything. My intuition told me that Chloe might be the reason Liam was driven to despair. Why hadn't I contacted Liam right away? Why didn't I go to him immediately? My heart was flooded with regret, and for a while, I couldn't even speak. During this time, I received a letter. My hands trembled as I saw the sender's name, Liam. The handwriting was unmistakably his. Liam had passed away 13 days ago. Panicking, I hurried back to my room and opened the envelope. Tears flowed freely as I held the letter from Liam. It must have been something he wrote before his passing, a letter without a suicide note, and with the true cause still shrouded in darkness. I was afraid to read it, yet it might reveal what had been tormenting Liam for years. As I cautiously opened the letter, it was filled with words of gratitude towards me. My body shook uncontrollably, and I couldn't stop sobbing. Why couldn't I have saved him? Why, oh why? The same questions echoed in my mind. As I tried to put the letter back into the envelope with trembling hands, I noticed another folded piece of paper inside. What's this? I wondered. Unfolding the additional paper, I was stunned by the words written on it. Take revenge on my wife for me, followed by an unfamiliar address. Is this where Liam wanted me to go? My tears had stopped, but cold sweat broke out. I couldn't imagine Liam ever using the word revenge. He must have been pushed to the edge. What could I possibly find out there? Since the funeral, I had been cooped up at home, but now I rushed out in haste, so absorbed in my mission that I even forgot to put on makeup. But at that moment, none of that mattered. Determined to honor my dear son's last wish, I rushed to the address specified in Liam's letter. It led me to a rental storage facility not far from my home. Among the rows of storage units, I located the one with the number from the letter. Inserting the small, thin key that had come with the letter, I unlocked the door. The small room, about the size of a half-bedroom, was dimly lit and slightly musty despite it being daytime. I flipped the switch next to the door, and the exposed fluorescent light buzzed to life, casting a harsh glare across the room. What is this? I whispered as the space became brighter. The light revealed a desk cluttered with photos haphazardly spread out, surrounded by scattered pieces of notepaper. The floor was littered with notebooks and empty plastic bottles. The scene was chaotic, and I could hardly believe that Liam had used this place. He was always so meticulous about his personal space and belongings. A deep sense of fear gripped me. Trembling, I felt that I was about to uncover something I shouldn't see. The diary before me seemed like a clear warning. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and reluctantly focused on the photos on the desk. Chloe was in them, but she wasn't alone. She was holding hands intimately with an unknown man. The other photos showed them together repeatedly, undeniable proof of infidelity. Though I had suspected from the letter, seeing the evidence confirmed it. Chloe was the source of Liam's stress. While work may have added some pressure, it was Chloe's actions that drove Liam to despair. Trembling, I frantically began to sift through the notes and notebooks. The notebooks were filled with meticulous accounts of Chloe's behavior, exact dates and times of her insults and abusive actions. Her cruelty, including calling Liam useless and hitting him, was documented in chilling detail. My heart ached with the realization of what Liam had endured. Why hadn't I noticed? Why hadn't Liam confided in me? In addition to Liam's handwritten notes, there were also reports that seemed to be from a private investigation into Chloe's infidelity. Several USB drives were tucked in an envelope on the desk. I packed them into my bag and closed the storage unit door behind me. Staying any longer felt unbearable. The place was saturated with Liam's resentment, and even I, his mother, felt overwhelmed by it. I'm sorry, Liam, I murmured, my heart heavy with hatred for Chloe, who had so drastically changed my son. I resolved to seek justice for Liam. I could have fathomed why he had to endure such suffering or why he hadn't reached out for help. Determined to find answers and avenge his unresolved grievances, I delved into the evidence Liam had left behind. The cruel treatment and infidelity were laid bare in the documents and photos. Each time I reviewed the evidence, I was overwhelmed by waves of panic and nausea. It was a painful and self-destructive task that left me drowning in regret. The realization that even if I fulfilled my revenge, Liam wouldn't return, only deepened my sorrow. Despite this, I couldn't stand idle. I had to decide what to do with the damning evidence. Should I hand it over to the police? No, that seemed too lenient. Liam had ended his life consumed by hatred for Chloe and her affair partner. What could I do to ensure he rested in peace? Just then, the doorbell rang, signaling a visitor. Could it be the police? When I checked the intercom, a familiar face appeared. "Hello, it's Smith here," said the young man, bowing to the camera. "Daniel Smith, Liam's friend from high school." I opened the door, and Smith, dressed in a suit, bowed solemnly. I invited him in, and he requested to pay his respects at Liam's altar. I led him to the prayer room, where Smith took out offerings from his bag and sat in front of the altar. After a period of fervent prayer, he turned to face me, his expression serious and resolved. Smith adjusted his glasses and reached into his pocket, pulling out a letter. With a somber expression, he placed the letter on the floor and extended it towards me. It was the same letter I had received from Liam. "This is a letter from Liam," Smith said. "I understand you've received one as well. Liam asked both of us to seek revenge against Chloe. As Liam's mother, I was torn. It was one thing for me to be involved, but dragging Smith, an outsider, into this felt wrong. Although it pained me to deny Liam's wish, I expressed my concerns to Smith. Smith, however, rejected that idea. "Even if it's about revenge, I have no intention of doing anything illegal. I'm sure Liam wouldn't have wanted that," he said directly. His words made me realize my own state of mind. Shocked by Liam's loss, I had been swayed by the notion of revenge without a clear plan. Alone, I might have done something drastic. Smith then pulled out a business card case from his pocket and handed me a card. "I gave you one at the funeral, but here it is again," he said. The card bore his name and professional details, a tangible reminder of his support and the more lawful path I needed to follow. I couldn't delve into details right away and had to hand over my card somewhat abruptly. Now that I think back, I remember Smith giving me his card at the funeral. He had visited our home several times during high school and even attended the wedding. At the time, I found it odd to receive a business card from him, but my shock had overshadowed any curiosity I had about it. I hadn't paid much attention to his words back then. Smith had indeed mentioned, "If you have any trouble, please contact me." The business card he gave me read, "Smith Law Office." After high school, Smith had pursued a career in law, though I only knew he was working in New York. I had no idea he had become a lawyer. Smith had received Liam's letter and, with the determination to seek justice within the bounds of the law, came to my house. "I've closed my office for a while," he said, smiling for the first time. It was a familiar smile, a gesture of friendship. He wanted to help both Liam and me, refusing to accept any payment for his services. Along with the letter, Liam had sent a substantial retainer fee via registered cash mail. Smith returned it all, saying, "I can't accept this. Please let me do this as a friend. It's the least I can do since I couldn't help him." I hastily stopped him and decided to keep the money for now. Smith, too, was grappling with the inability to save Liam. I needed to consider his feelings as well. I briefed him on the contents of Liam's letter and the evidence I had found in the storage unit. "Let's take a break first," I suggested. "You must be tired from your journey. How about some tea?" Despite the urgency of the situation, having a strong ally like Smith was comforting. I could sense that Smith, too, found reassurance in our shared resolve. As I welcomed him into my home, I knew that we both needed to calm down before moving forward. I handed him the documents, and he let out a deep sigh. "This is tough," he said, a comment that seemed to reflect either his own struggle or perhaps slipped out unintentionally. The man with whom Chloe was having an affair was named Alan Jones. According to Liam's notes, Jones was not only aware of Liam but had also repeatedly threatened and harassed him to leave Chloe. Smith, with his legal expertise, explained that Jones was just as culpable as Chloe. Even if they tried to deny the affair, the photos and evidence Liam left behind should be sufficient for us to pursue justice. "As a lawyer, I can't represent you in court, but I do have the legal knowledge," Smith said. He suggested that while bringing charges against both Chloe and Jones would be a significant step, it would make Smith's role as a lawyer unnecessary, since he had no intention of defending either of them. Instead, our focus would be to organize Liam's evidence, submit it to the police, and press for substantial damages. "We'll present everything Liam left to the police and seek justice for him," Smith said, almost as if trying to reassure himself. He needed to maintain his composure. I explained that I was scheduled to meet with the police soon, and with the evidence Liam had provided, Chloe and Jones would face consequences regardless of their denials. However, I felt a strong need to confront Chloe directly. As a mother, I felt it was my obligation to face her. "I want to speak with Chloe without revealing the existence of Liam's evidence," I told Smith. He agreed readily, understanding that once the evidence was submitted to the police, there might not be another opportunity to speak with Chloe. The timeline was uncertain, and I felt the pressure of time slipping away. I decided to go to Chloe's place immediately, showing up without any prior notice. Her confusion was palpable when she saw me. It was as if she had assumed I wouldn't recover from the shock of the funeral, and her discomfort was evident, given how she had previously revealed her true nature over the phone. It became clear that Chloe was anxious about what I might say. "I know everything from Liam," I started, unable to hold back. "He's not coming back, but you need to apologize. Apologize to Liam." Seeing Chloe living her life as if nothing had happened pushed me past my breaking point. Before I realized it, I found myself speaking out. "What are you talking about? Why should I apologize? What have I done?" Chloe's face froze in shock at my words. Her frantic reaction made me understand that she had been on edge for weeks, worried about when her crimes would come to light. Though she might have deceived the police, she couldn't fool me. I knew everything from Liam, the affair with Alan Jones, and all the terrible things she had done to him. "It's all your fault," I said deliberately. "You took Liam from us." Chloe's agitation grew. I don't know. I haven't done anything." She covered her ears and shook her head, her mind unraveling under the weight of the confrontation. Her psyche seemed to crack, and she collapsed, crying out, I'm sorry. My heart ached with regret, thinking that if I had noticed sooner or been stronger, perhaps Chloe's behavior towards Liam could have changed. It was infuriating to realize that someone like her had tormented my son. I immediately contacted Smith and recounted what had happened. He chose to explain everything to the police right away, clearly surprised at how swiftly Chloe admitted her guilt. I had expected a more drawn-out confrontation, but the resolution came unexpectedly fast. Later, I learned that Chloe had never anticipated Liam would take his own life. She had hoped that by harassing him, he would initiate the divorce without any proof of her affair. She had planned to claim that Jones was merely a friend. It was a misguided scheme, but she and Jones thought it would work. Liam, still in love with Chloe, never sought legal help or filed a lawsuit despite gathering evidence, hoping for a resolution in a way that never came. Chloe promised to cut ties with Jones, but it was clear her regret came too late. Liam could have sought revenge himself, but he was too distraught to make rational decisions. Unable to sue Chloe, he remained trapped in his suffering, unaware that his kindness was only pushing him further to the edge. Once Smith contacted the police, Chloe and Jones were quickly apprehended. The evidence Liam left behind exposed their crimes, and the case soon became national news. Chloe, now unable to speak coherently, and Jones were both found guilty. They faced confinement in a police hospital. Their actions and names splashed across headlines. Smith's diligent work ensured that damages were claimed and justice was served. Jones lost his job, his sins exposed to his company and friends, leaving him isolated. Even if he tries to reintegrate into society, he will remain burdened by damages and scandal. Chloe's condition was dire. The doctors had little hope for her recovery. She was consumed by guilt, her nights restless and reliant on medication. Though the law had taken its course, Liam wouldn't return. As I saw Smith off, I thanked him deeply. "Liam was fortunate to have a friend like you. Thank you so much." Smith, a bit flustered but smiling, responded, "I just did what I could as a friend. Please don't be so formal." His support had kept me grounded when I might have lost my composure. I struggled internally to keep my anger in check, deeply appreciative of his efforts. Even though Liam was no longer there to witness the resolution, I continued to bow my head in gratitude. Smith went on to establish a volunteer organization to assist people burdened by various troubles, providing legal support even for those with financial difficulties. His drive to help others, fueled perhaps by his inability to save Liam, led him to continue this work alongside his legal career. A few weeks ago, he visited Liam's tomb and introduced me to his wife and newborn child. Despite his busy schedule, he always makes sure to visit a few times a year, something that would surely please Liam. As for me, I resigned from the part-time job I had been holding since Liam's passing. I felt there was something unique I could contribute, even without the expertise of someone like Smith. I decided to volunteer with a group that supports families who have lost loved ones, joining an organization founded by a local internal medicine doctor. This work, which involves confronting and assisting those in despair, became my new calling. It allowed me to channel my grief into helping others, aiming to prevent tragedies like Liam's. Through this journey, I developed a close relationship with the doctor who founded the organization. Although at times I feel guilty about moving forward, I have come to understand that finding happiness is not a betrayal of my past. It's okay to carry the memories of my husband and Liam with me as I navigate this new chapter. I intend to cherish their memory while embracing the possibility of finding joy in life again.